We met before, did we?
I think so.
I think we did, yeah.
I'm trying to think what the circumstances were. There could be many different ones, but
a few. Okay, yeah, we have. I think I right. Yeah.
Peers and colleagues.
Perfect. Everybody's in here now. You're all good to go.
Okay, Mary.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Hi, everyone. You're very welcome along to this session. We are absolutely delighted to have the Minister of State for Employment Affairs and Retail Business, Damien English, with us here today. And this event is a Q&A entitled COVID and Brexit, the Impacts for Irish Business. And it was organised by Dungarvan and West Waterford Chamber. And I think we should all commend Jenny on her beautiful backdrop, Jenny Beresford there before we start as well, showing off Dungarvan in all its glory. Before I hand over to David Welsh, the Chamber President, I just have a few very quick kind of housekeeping things to go through. So as long as everyone can hear me, just to let you know, this session is being recorded. Once everyone's okay with that, just important to let you know that at the start. It's going to last about 45 minutes. And the format will be that the Minister will take the floor in just a few minutes. He will address you all, and then we will open the session up to a Q&A. And we do have some questions that have already been submitted to the Minister, so we will go through those. But just to say, it's up to yourselves as well. If you have a question you want to ask, if you want to ask it yourself, that's fine. If you want me to ask it on your behalf, just type in the chat box and I'll be able to see all the questions and go through them. And maybe when you type in the chat box, if you have a question, just give your preference as to whether you want me to give you the floor or whether you want me to ask the question for you, just to say that at the start. But we'll have plenty of time for questions as well. But right now, I would like to hand over to David Welsh, the President of Dungarvan and West Waterford Chamber.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for coming along. It's a little bit late, but belated Happy New Year to everybody. Okay, I suppose thank you to Mary for facilitating today from WLR, and of course to the Minister of State, Damien English, for being our guest speaker. It's an honour to have him here and appreciate his time in the busy times. He's following hot in the footsteps of Minister Simon Coveney, Minister of Foreign Affairs, doing one of these talks, and we hope to have other people coming to you soon as well with some extra information. Just before we start, I'd like to just put on the record the Chamber vouchers this year. We've broken 800,000 for a small town and in the Dungarvan and West Waterford. 803,000 to be exact was the number of vouchers sold this year. A phenomenal effort by Jenny, the team, and some of the sellers like Anne-Marie and Capital Cleaners, Dungarvan Credit Union came along. I don't know the facts, but I would say head of population for a chamber of our size, we are punching probably at the highest number of chamber vouchers in the country. It's phenomenal effort to keep local, especially in the current times we're in. So just to put that on the record. Back to today, Damien English T.D. was appointed Minister of State with responsibility for employment affairs and retail business in July last year. He previously served as Minister of State at the Department of Housing and Planning and Local Government and as Minister of State for Housing and Urban Renewal. Obviously, he's a member of Fine Gael and represents Meath West. Would have a background in business himself with a diploma from SEMA in management accounting. Married to Laura, living in Summerhill, an area I know quite well myself, actually. Okay, look, I'm going to hand you over to Damien. I'm conscious of time and we've lots of questions to get through. So look, thank you again, and we'll pass you on to Mr. English. Thank you.
Good morning, or at this stage, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. But David, as President, first of all, thanks very much for the invitation to join with yourselves today, and to all your members for giving me the chance to engage with yourselves. And I want to thank Jenny for all the work organising this and sending in some of the questions originally. And I'm conscious there will be plenty more questions as well. But I know there's a lot of work in organising this event as well. And thanks, Mary, for chairing it and for promising to go easy on me, of course, as well, which is always a bonus when we engage with local radio. But again, it's important, Mary, and I want to recognise the service that yourself and your colleagues right throughout the country have provided, A, from a business point of view and getting information out there, but B, more importantly, in helping us manage COVID. I think the media, and certainly local media, have played a major role in helping us achieve that. And I think that conjunction then with local businesses, local chambers, the Leo service and all that, everybody's played their part. And that's been a major help to us in trying to deal with COVID, where we were still a bit of way to go, but I think everyone's effort has helped so far as well. So just a couple of quick comments. Again, thanks, Jenny, in that. I want to thank Senator John Cummins for linking in with me over the last couple of months, probably chased me up there, try to get this done before Christmas and then after Christmas as well. But John and many other colleagues across all the parties, in fairness, we have a very good relationship in the Dáil when it comes to business supports and business issues. And I have to say, across all the political parties, to come to us regularly as ministers, as a department with queries on your behalf, and to tease through and to work on the raids in both houses of their offices as well. So good relationship there, going back probably to the days that I was previously in the Department of Enterprise, where we worked on some of the plans for the South East, because the South East was always seen as a bit of a black spot when it came to unemployment numbers. When I first worked in this department back in 2011, 2012, some great progress on that over the last couple of years, and a lot of effort driven locally by businesses like yourselves and business members, and certainly chamber members, driving that agenda. Because I always say, for government national plans to work, there has to be local buy-in, and it's that strong relationship through regional plans, through local plans, that we are achieving results. And I know all that hard work and all those results have been impacted a lot over the last year with COVID and now along with Brexit too. But I still think there's a lot of opportunity to grow our businesses again and to grow jobs and to sustain jobs in the future as well. So I'm happy to engage with you regularly, David, as president of the chamber, Dungarvan and Waterford. What is it? What do you get it right? West Waterford, and keep that right. I know Dungarvan quite well, but Jenny's picture paints a lovely picture of it as well. But it is nice to be able to engage with you, and I'm very happy to do this quite often during the year if it's of help to you. And just again to outline where I'm based in the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment, working there along with the Taoiseach, Leo Varadkar, and Minister Robert Try. So there's three of us in the department. We cover a lot of issues. Simon Coveney might have mentioned when he was talking to you that the trade aspect that was in foreign affairs is back in now with our department. So it's enterprise, trade and employment. So I think all the tools that we need are together now to be able to try to provide a top class service for business. We do cover employment issues as well. And probably a big part of my work is to try to get that balance right around employment laws and then changes to employment, because I recognise it can be quite difficult and quite costly to manage a team of people and to apply them and all people's rights and entitlements, and that comes with responsibilities. But it's not easy to be an employer, and it's not easy to open the door of a business as well. And our job and my work is try to get that balance and right in the years ahead as well. I don't want to make a big long speech, because I'd rather these opportunities are a chance to engage and to answer your questions and tease through the questions. But just to say, I understand the challenges most people had faced, probably as a recovering from the financial crisis for 7 or 8 years, and then to finally to be in a couple of good years of growth and job creation and finally getting to that maximum employment. It's an awful kick in the teeth to have to deal with COVID over the last year. And we know that while it's put the country under pressure, the health system, and everyone's very worried for their families and for their health, it has a major impact on business. And in many cases, businesses have been asked to close the doors on numerous occasions over the last year. That's not something we want to do as a department. We are a department for trade. So telling you can't trade or you can't open your premises is not something we like doing. But we do work quite closely with the Department of Health and with the whole of government. And there's, in some cases, when the virus is out of control, there is no choice but to impose restrictions on all of our movements. And it's not so much to say that any particular trade or business is the reason that COVID is spreading. It's the movement of people. And when we try to say non-essential businesses are closed, we recognise everyone's essential, but some businesses can be done from our homes, others can't. Some businesses we can do without temporarily, not businesses, but products or supplies, or they can be got through other means. But it's behind it all is just to restrict the movement of people, because the only way we can get a virus under control is actually to stop people having too many close contacts and to be close together. So it's not to impact or to pick on anyone's business or to say it's A or it's B or it's C. That's not what it's about. It's just trying to minimize that movement of people as well. And during COVID, we've had great engagement with all the various chambers, with all the various representative bodies, trying to bring the voice of business to our desks. And I chair the retail forum. We meet probably weekly at this stage. I know the Taoiseach and Minister Try are involved in other forums as well. So we've constant engagement through all the representative bodies, which really helps us. And Ian Talbot from the chambers is a major person who feeds into all our discussions, and his team at the national level with a view to local as well. So I do think we are trying to respond as best we possibly can. There are a range of business supports in place here, which I can discuss with you in a moment. A lot of the members are familiar with them, have been using them, have been drawing them down. They are certainly of use, but no one would claim that they replace every lost euro you've had. Without a doubt, businesses have had a very difficult year. We'll have a difficult year ahead to finish out dealing with COVID and then to start our recovery plans and to try to regrow, to re-employ. That will be difficult, and we will support you on that as best we possibly can. We have tried to manage taxpayers' money through the budget out in terms of business supports, job supports, and to reach those businesses who need them. But I'm conscious that there's still some sectors we've been unable to reach or reach in a proper way, or that some of the schemes aren't designed to suit you. So I'm happy to tease through that as well, because we're constantly looking to see how we can tweak schemes, adjust them, and make changes. And that's part of the discussion we've been having for the last couple of weeks in our own department. Because we are still dealing with COVID, we're living with COVID, we're now in level 5 again. So we are going to have to tailor supports again, and to find additional resources to feed into business as well to support you. I think the probably of most benefit to most people would be the rates waiver, would be the CRIS payments, would be the restart grants. But on top of all that, I think the wage subsidies will be proven the most successful, that I would say, to try to keep people close to their work, or to give employers a chance to keep people employed. But that comes at additional cost yourselves. I accept that as well, so I'm happy to tease through it. But we do, in the budget that went through in October, apart from setting aside money to continue to fund in all the existing schemes, there is £3.5 billion set aside in our recovery fund to try and help this country recover as we come out of COVID. And we can tap into that money during this year to continue supports and to bring in some new ideas, new schemes. And the thinking behind that will be that we can target various sectors as the year progresses as well. So again, happy to get feedback on that now and into the future as well. The other one then as well is that there is contingency funds set aside for the Department of Health, for social protection as well, to fund additional measures when there's an additional pressure on the system. So already, because of the pressures on the health system, we will see that contingency fund be needed for health. And likewise, with the PUP payments and other social welfare payments, the contingency fund that was set aside for social welfare will probably be needed as well. So we are in a position with the budget that the resources are there to help get us through COVID. We will draw on them, we will need them, but we have to get back to a position, hopefully later this year, that we can ease off on supports and really get on with the growth agenda and try to support yourselves as you restart your business, regrow our employment as well, because that's how we will recover from the impacts of COVID. We've all experienced the austerity measures we went through. The last time this country was hit with a financial crash, those austerity measures were needed at a time because we had to get the public finances in order. Thankfully, I think we're in a better position from that space this time. So we should be able to use cash to support business, to grow business, rather than having to hit people with austerity measures. And that's not the intention at all. We do believe we can close the public finances gap in 2 or 3 years from recovery, from a jobs recovery. And that's where we're working with ourselves as chambers, as Chamber of Commerce, and working with our members. We need businesses to be able to grow again, open again, and create jobs. And that's how we can recover out of this as well. So we'll be happy to work with you, myself, Collins, Robert Troy, many others as well from our various departments, to engage with you in the weeks and months ahead as well, to hone in on what's needed for the various areas, and certainly the southeast. We'll have other formal occasions to discuss that with you around the regional plans, but we can touch on them today as well. But that's just a quick overview of where we're at. My main focus is on the retail sector, but across all business. We work with Enterprise Ireland, we work with the Leos, we work with the Chambers, we're all there. But also retail is a major focus of my work on a weekly basis, because it's a major employer. There's over 300,000 people employed in that sector. It didn't always have a strong enough voice as perceived in government, so we're trying to change that to make sure that it's in our titles now as a department, that we can focus in here as well. But there's many businesses and many sectors that we reach out to and want to work with as well. And a lot of your members, I think you're a very, very strong chamber, and compliment you on your figures there, David, your reference earlier on as well. That's the kind of chambers we need to work with and encourage to go with as well. So this was a short introduction to who I am, what I'm about, and happy to take questions and work with you on that as well. So thanks, Mary. Sorry for going on a little bit long.
No,
I'm conscious if you had Simon Coveney before me, you would have much longer speeches and much longer questions. I'm always slagging Simon that his answers are much longer than mine, so I'll try and keep them shorter. But we can, Mary, you can shut me up if I'm rambling on too much.
No, not at all. You're not rambling at all. And I think people were really interested in what you had to say there, Minister. You did get some questions submitted in advance. I'm having a look through. So some of the people who asked the questions are here today, and I think some aren't. But we might just go through them anyway, because they're very relevant, and I'm sure there will be extra questions at the end as well that weren't submitted in advance. But Pat Keane was in touch. I'm not sure if Pat is here today, but I can ask the question on behalf of Pat if not. And he just wanted to know, what is the government's long-term strategy for SMEs, including retail, especially with the fundamental change that's happened? And he had some specific questions. How is the government preparing, adapting to support the sector? What kind of digital supports can the government offer small town retail business? And could the tax credit scheme currently on offer to the hospitality sector be rolled out to the retail sector as well? So there's a few different elements to that question, Minister, if you want to address them.
Thanks, Mary. Yeah, there's a couple of issues in that. And yes, I suppose first of all, yes, retail is a major focus of ours. And we're very conscious that even before COVID, retail was on a transition, and there was a lot of movement towards online. We recognise that the future is the combination of both, and the blend it would be that kind of online presence, but also the high street presence. And the majority of retailers we talk to want to have both. So we will work to support both, and we are developing a town centre first model, which would be, I think, attractive to the like of Dungarvan there, that we do believe in holding on to that town centre and developing it. We have seen right throughout the country, and I've seen in my previous role as well in the Department of Planning and Housing, that we know for the last 30 or 40 years in many areas there's been a decline and a move away from town centres, from businesses and supporting businesses there, but just activity as well. And we want to beef back up our towns and our villages, and have people back in their trading, but also back in their living as well. So there's a town centre first proposal as programme for government that we're working on across 3 or 4 departments, and that's something that we will engage with you on the future as well. But that'll be strengthening the town centres, number one. And number two, I think what we can see over the last a couple of issues that we think will help with the retail sector. One, on the retail forum, we had just started before I took over in July, some research and analysis into what skills are needed for the future of retail, and that changeover of skills, and how can we work with the existing employees as well as employers in the sector to make sure they're in a position to avail of new opportunities in retail and the new way of doing business, which is online as well. So there was a couple of reports that were commissioned and were completed, and I launched one just before Christmas with a very, very detailed analysis of the skills and where we have to go with that. So I hope to be announcing during February and early March new programs and new interventions to be able to help businesses with upskilling, with training, and we're trying and targeting the new opportunities as well. So that's number one around the skills area. I will ask that employers would come with us on that journey. I was previously a skills minister, where we tried to change the whole concept around apprenticeships and to move away from just having apprenticeships for training for trades. And now there's a bigger range of apprenticeships in this country now, covering many forms of business, IT, sales, insurance, and so on. A lot of opportunities, I would say, in there for the tech sector, and that blend of retail and tech, and the need for both to work together. So we are going to try to focus in on the job training. And I'm conscious some of the large multiples have training and so on, but as a sector, there's not enough training going on, I would say, to future-proof the sector. So that's something we will support, we will work on, and we're working through proposals there that will feedback on that in the future as well. To encourage businesses to be able to trade then during lockdown and during times that their premises were closed, we did try to encourage many more to go to avail of the online trading voucher. And funny enough, this is something we would have started 7 or 8 years ago, and there was a very low uptake of the trading online voucher, operated through the LEOs, through the local enterprise offices. Very poor uptake, but as of last March, the demand went up nearly 1,000% for companies who wanted to trade online. That reflects the reality that they were forced to have to go online in some cases to be able to reach their customers, and others availed the opportunity when they were a bit quieter because of lockdowns to think about their business and look at other options. So the online trading voucher, about 12,000 new businesses drew down that last year and now have an online presence. And many of them are in Waterford, they're in all our counties as well. There'll be a second drawdown on that grant because most of those businesses are entitled to a second grant to develop their offering online. And we're also open to new businesses applying for that as well. So that's a major help. For those businesses that are online and want to develop a stronger online presence, there's a grant through Enterprise Ireland. That's the online retail grant. It's different to the trading online grant. And that's an offering of up to €50,000 to develop your business and your online presence and the skills around that as well. So it's taken online to another level within your business as well. We've had 2 rounds of that last year. Each time about 300 companies would have applied for it. Very successful, great opportunities. We'll open that again in February to anybody that wants to look at their online trading and bring it to another level again as well. Happy to maybe send on some details to the chamber to engage with you on that. But I think it's a very positive scheme that we need to work on as well. Pat asked specifically around taxes. Again, there are the VAT there, which affects anybody certainly in retail. That was reduced to 21%. I can't confirm if that will be continued or not beyond March. That's a decision of the Department of Finance. A lot would say to me in the retail sector they wanted to continue. It was brought in at the time mainly to probably cut the cost of business as opposed to the expectation that it will be passed on to consumers. But some did both. but it was recognised by us as a department that businesses needed a little bit of a break when it came to the costs, and that's why we were supportive of it as well. But Pat is probably asking that the VAT rate in relation to the hospitality sector, that's down to the 9%. That's probably where his question is. So the answer to that with Pat is that we will engage with the Department of Finance around additional supports targeted at retail. I'm happy to take some suggestions on that as well. They might not all be in the VAT space, but they'll be in we will use the tax system as we have done in the past to try to do that as well. I would reference though, the lot of retail sector can get the CRIS payment now because they're closed, and it's certainly a benefit. The rates rebate was essential, I think, to a lot of businesses last year. So effectively, for most of last year, the rates were rebated. That is a decision was made there at the end of December for this year, for the first quarter, so January, February, March. There'll also be a rates rebate for the majority of businesses that you represent. The details of who qualifies for that is not confirmed yet, but I know it will. The majority of your businesses will be able to avail of that as well. That'll be confirmed in the next week or two to be finalised. And if lockdown continues or restrictions continue beyond the first quarter, that's where the rate rebate will be looked at again as well. Most of your business here will be familiar with the Restart grant, which they would have drawn down on 2 occasions last year. The CRIS payment probably replaced that with a weekly payment. But we're conscious that there are some businesses, probably not in the retail sector, Pat, but in other sectors, that are not fitting into the boxes for the different schemes. So we are looking at how we can reach those businesses, and whether we adjust CRIS or tailor CRIS or bring in a new scheme. But we are, and the decisions will be made in that in the next couple of days as well, how we can get those businesses. They're often called orphan companies, so they're falling between stools. So we will reach out and try to get them as well. So that's just a quick rundown there. But yeah, retail is a major focus, and we will try to bring in new offerings around that as well.
Thanks a million, Minister. We'll return to some of the pre-submitted questions in a few minutes because we have a good few to get through. But Regina Mangan has just indicated she'd like to ask you a question there. Regina.
Good afternoon, Minister. It's great to have you on board. You mentioned that the government are aware that the Southeast is very much an unemployment black spot, and you spoke about future-proofing our economy and achieving results. So my question is in relation to the Technical University in the Southeast. It is the most important economic factor for our future in Waterford in the Southeast. And currently there are 8,000 level 8 honour degree students. Now we need 16,000 8 honour degree students, okay? And we need to increase these numbers in disciplines such as medicine, teacher training, and economics. There are only 3 samples. So in order for us to go to from 8,000 to 16,000 students, as in honour degree students, is the government committed to this? Because we really need, in the Southeast, we need the same playing field really as the Midwest, such as UL, and it's that level of financial commitment that we need to enjoy the same economy as the other regions, Minister.
No, that's a fair point, Regina. I'd be very familiar with the great work that's went on in Waterford, because I've been down there quite a lot in my previous role when I was Minister for Skills and Research. I would have been very impressed with what was going on there at the time. And I'm conscious there's applications in at the moment for funding as well out of some of the additional funds. I can't commit another department's spending budget here today with you, but I do know from talking to Simon Harris a lot around this. He's very committed to the skills agenda and recognises that we have to have that balance throughout the country, but also we have to benefit from the changes in the education system over the last, I would say, the last 7 or 8 years, when our education system has become a lot more enterprise facing. And you're right, you touch on a couple of disciplines there. I think it is important that we focus in on where the skills gaps are. And how we can best serve a region and this area. And I think Waterford, IT have been in a position to do that and have reacted to the need locally. That's why you have the skills forum set up as well to try to bring the two together. Because I'm very conscious that while education in its own right is very, very important, and you have to, but I think there also has to be, in my view, that link in with the enterprise agenda to make sure that we are providing the right courses at the right place at the right time. I think you're in a strong position to do that. I think with the capital plans that are announced on the Road to 2040, and there's over 10 billion committed to this year, I do think education is getting a much higher share of capital spend than it ever got before. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. You had a few very strong ministers there who put in place plans to draw down that funds. I would have referenced Richard Bruton. Now you have Norman Foley. But you now have two senior ministers championing the causes of education at the cabinet table. And that's a very strong position to be in, to make sure we win the extra resources. I can't say what individual institutes will get the money, but I do know there's a commitment to education. In fairness to Michael Martin as well as Taoiseach, he is very committed to education. We would have seen in the last probably 7 or 8 years, certainly coming out of the financial crash in 2011, the best way to future-proof any country or any region is through the education and through the skills agenda.
So could I respectfully request, Minister, will you bring that back to Micheál Martin, please?
No,
that question specifically.
I absolutely will. And you're asking me 8,000, 16,000. I'm not going to give a figure on it. But what I would say to you is I do think we've proven, again, no, similar to businesses trading online, education online and modular education is key to be able to, I would say, sweat the assets a lot more and get a lot more out of our education system. I'm not saying individual people work longer hours, but we have assets there that could be used a lot more, in my view, right throughout the country education. I've been in the mall and at the mall, and I do think we're in a strong position now with the benefits of online and recognising the opportunity around that and even holding exams online. While it's very, very important that all students get time on campus, I think we can do a lot more, and that's the belief of Simon Harris. And there are particular money set aside as a response to COVID and Brexit to develop that end of it. But also, I think you'll see a lot more money going into education, because that's for the future. So I will certainly individually talk with the South East, but I can't commit their money on their behalf without their involvement. But I recognise the importance of it. And I think, Regina, what we could do is, when we focused, I referenced the black spot at the South East would have been from when I was back in enterprise for a couple of years as a minister, working on the skills agenda, working on the research agenda. And at that stage, we were involved in a lot of the South East plans. And I could see at that stage that there were, you were, in terms of percentages, unemployment, you were behind other regions. My understanding is there's been quite a large catch up on that. I don't have all the regional data that you have had. You probably differ. But I'm very happy that as we develop the new regional plans, that we can focus in on that. And that's something that we hope to start. The process kind of started, but we hope to have a new round of regional funds for those regional plans. I think it's very, very important that as the South East, Waterford is the major player of that as well. And Dungarvan and Waterford as a whole, I would say, that we focus in on the regional plans to see if there are any opportunities we can develop there. Again, we do try to encourage that link up across chambers, across councils, that regional balance. We have seen the massive success in Waterford drawing down of the urban regeneration funds, and to have a commitment from government of over 100 million into a certain area of a city. I'm conscious that's not in Dungarvan or your part of Waterford, but that has a knock-on effect for the overall region, as it can draw talent, can draw employment into the region. And that's what that's about. And I think under Project 2040, it's trying to have giant up thinking across our government departments, that we are looking 5, 10, 20 years ahead to make sure we put investments in all the sectors, but education is a major part of that too. So.
We still have a huge amount of questions to get through, Minister. So
okay, I cut short up, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're grand. Is Vincent Pettit here? Because I know Vincent had submitted a question. I see a Vincent here. I'm not sure if it's the same. You're there, Vincent.
Yes, I am indeed.
Yeah. So Vincent, hi. You had a question about transitioning from subsidy to non-subsidy, which I think will apply to a lot of people actually at the moment.
I did indeed, and hi, Minister. Thanks for taking your time. How are you doing? It was really a question about the transitioning from the subsidy supports, and again, I'd have to state that they have been tremendously impactful and helpful. We're in catering ourselves, so we've absolutely availed of them. I suppose my concern is about the retrospective measurement of the eligibility and what might come of that when the time comes. If a review reveals that you're marginally outside the eligibility criteria, i.e. slightly below 30%, what's the view, or will you and revenue take in relation to that? And what sort of kickback can an operator expect, having availed of the subsidy, but maybe not quite reaching the eligibility criteria?
Yeah, Vincent, that's a very fair question. It comes up quite a lot. And while revenue and Department of Finance have responsibility for the management of the subsidy and the CRIS scheme, we have been very clear as a department working with them that businesses have to be given an understanding that there's a fairly flexible approach from revenue to that. It's not to come down on a business for a ton of bricks if you end up at 28% as opposed to 30%. But it's about, first of all, the business decision to do it. And that is, if you're tracking your turnover and a month to month, you're supposed to watch this. And it'll be very clear the next 2-3 months, January, February, turnover will be impacted a lot. But once revenue are pretty clear on this, if you kind of if you spot that your turnover is going to be greater than you thought, as soon as you spot that, if we get to engagement with revenue on the scheme and say, oh, we did predict and we did estimate that we would need this scheme, we have needed it for the last couple of months, we don't think we'll need it for June or July, which is what would have happened last year as well, then revenue are in a place to be flexible around that as well, and to make a judgment call to recognise that everyone honoured this, entered this in good faith, and it wasn't on purpose trying to beat the system or con the system. And that's what we're seeing in the engagement with individual companies. There's a fair bit of, I won't say flexibility, but understanding from revenue, that it's not to jump in a business because they ended up at 29%. That's not really it's about. There is a call from a lot of sectors to try to reduce that 30% margin or 30% target. We're looking at that to see is a scope on that. Certainly in the retail sector, a lot would say to me that even at 90%, turnover, they can't make a profit. They can't make a living because of margins. Catering is slightly different. Each sector is different, so we are looking at them again. But I'd be confident enough that revenue are understanding of that situation, and that's what we've seen so far, Vincent. That's the intention behind it as well.
Thanks, Minister. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Minister. We have a Stephen Walsh who'd like to ask a question now. Stephen, if you want to put your question there.
Hi, Minister. Hi, everybody. Just one quick question regarding the SBCI loan. The loan fund was well subscribed over the last 6-9 months, and only recently, last week, it was announced that the fund that was allocated to a certain number of the lenders has been exhausted. Now, is there any idea? Do you think that will be continued for given that we're no better off now than we were last March, April, May?
Yeah, Stephen, there's no firm decision made on it, but because it's not all drawn down. But you're right. Two of the lending institutions and possibly a third have reached their max level. They have to make their case if they want additional resources allocated. They have not really come banging the door down yet. They pushed it hard and worked hard to get those commitments made before the end of last year. We have to decide: can we reallocate some of the existing fund, or do we have to add to it? On 2 previous occasions, a decision was made to add to it. So that's kind of the space it's in. I don't have a firm answer for it. I was conscious that it might come up today, but I can't because the decision is not made. So it's not that I'm hiding or anything like that. It's just not made. But what I'll do is I'll take on the feedback to Dave or to Jenny there as soon as a decision is made on it. But I sense, because it's been successful and we've had a lot of feedback from the lending institutes that have used it and pushed it, that's been quite worthwhile. So I would take from that they possibly will see an increase in the fund. Can't guarantee it till I get it confirmed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. I think
have you applied into Stephen? Do you mind me asking?
We've an expansion plan here, and unfortunately we missed the boat in the first round due to the paperwork and everything required, and it's something that there is other avenues. You have the COVID guarantee scheme, the credit guarantee scheme also that's still available, but the terms are slightly different, and due to the fact that the SBCI loan is specifically, well, mostly for growth, it's more suitable for us. Yeah.
Okay, no, that's fair enough. I'll take a look at it and I'll feedback to you directly if you want. That's okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Minister, I think Jenny Beresford is going to come in now and ask a question that was submitted. So she's going to ask it on behalf of Eunice Power.
Yeah, Eunice Power. Sorry, first of all, thank you, Minister, for your time today. We really appreciate it. This is an area that I've lobbied certainly Senator John Cummins on before. It's about the CRSS, and Eunice Power is a caterer and also a well-known chef. But I suppose it's not only Eunice, because before Christmas, we'll say the restrictions were different, but now what my area, or what I want to talk about, is the broadening out of the CRSS eligibility, because now we'll say construction businesses and perhaps cleaning businesses who are not now required by office blocks or schools, and in addition to caterers, they're outside the criteria an awful lot for the CRSS. And I just wonder, is there any plans to broaden out the scheme?
There is, Jenny, and in fairness, I wonder who was behind John, but yes, John has been on to me quite a lot about it, Senator Cummins, but and others as well around the country. What we're trying to do is get a full list of the various sectors who are unable to avail of the CRIS payment. And I know that it's the regulations around CRIS and the kind of entitlements that they were clarified in the finance bill kind of late December. which has left some businesses outside the criteria, and others were brought back into it as well. So we recognise, and the Taoiseach on a couple of occasions on the floor of the Dáil during questions for our department has committed to either adjusting the CRIS scheme or a new scheme similar to it to reach those companies. The catering example is what we well flagged in discussion with ourselves as well. So we're hoping in the next couple of weeks, as in before the end of this month anyway, to bring clarity to either a slightly tailored or changing some of the rules around the CRIS payment or a new scheme that reaches those companies. It's probably going to be the latter, a new kind of scheme, maybe called something else or maybe linked to the name, but a different intervention where we clearly recognise that there are businesses there who are caught with that kind of premises rule that need assistance, and that's where we're trying to crack and solve it. So if there's any other sectors apart from catering that are aware of, our members bring to you, we're at the moment over the last couple of days trying to go through any plans we've had to try to make sure we're not missing any sectors, and I think we have a fair good picture of them all. But if there's anyone else you think of, we'd be happy to take a list off as well. Catering, definitely, Jenny, you have a well flagged, and I'm hoping to have a decent answer back to you. But so watch out for the next kind of 2 weeks around that.
Thank you, Minister. So it's the sectors that have made representation to us were catering, construction and cleaning. So thank you very much, Minister.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks, Jenny. Daragh Connolly is here, and Daragh had submitted a question as well. Daragh, if you want to ask the question, or I can ask it for you here. I can
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks a million. Minister, great to see you, and you're very clearly on top of your brief, and I want to compliment you on that. My question is, my business here on Main Street in Dungarvan goes back to 1915, and we are a community pharmacy, and we serve the community and do so proudly. What I worry about is not change. I worry about playing on an uneven playing field. I am acutely aware that there is huge movement towards online shopping, and that I see the on-post delivery van every day bursting at the seams, as I do DPD and DHL and the rest of them. What I'm acutely aware of is no contribution whatsoever is made by any of those businesses who sell into people in Dungarvan, and it is their right to have choice and access to new markets, but no contribution economically through rates, through repack, through PRSI, PAYE, or even buying locally, as I try and do as somebody who wants to live in this community and see it thrive. I would love for you to give a commitment, because you've already said that you can look beyond VAT as far as raising tax is concerned. I would love you to give us a commitment today that you could put together a working group to look at the idea of how companies can contribute to the local economies in which they sell, because I am proud to do so, and I would like them to do so. As a pharmacist, I collect a €1 levy from some of the poorest people in the country as they come to me to get their medicines from the medical card. So what I would like to suggest to you today is that you could put together a working group to look at a parcel levy, which could be levied through excise and duty rather than through VAT, and therefore have no workings within the European Union, because I know VAT has to be run by the European Union. And that money then can be directed towards those areas. So in the same way that I pay my rates to Dungarvan and to West Waterford, that monies can be paid to help to level that playing field. Thank you, Minister.
Thanks, Daragh, and it's a point well made by yourself. Jenny had kind of mentioned it to me already in a note, and I took a good interest in it. So I'm glad you're not asking me for an answer. There's a working group, but the danger of those politicians' working groups, you wouldn't know what would happen with that. But no, I think without a joking aside, I think it's important we do look at this. I'm very conscious, even before I was in politics, probably about 20 odd years ago, when John Bruton was at the time, Taoiseach referenced trying to rebalance that the rates would follow the employees, because you'd be familiar with maybe a lot of people living in Dungarvan might come into the city to work, and in the old way the rates would have stayed in the city. But now it's a little bit different now with the city and county together. But even Dublin versus other regions, the rates are where the business is located and the premises, and they're paying a lot of rates, but that doesn't benefit other counties as well. So I do think we have to have a conversation here around how best to manage those commercial rates, and who's paying them and who's not paying them. Because I'm very conscious, if you have a premises in a town centre, you're paying out quite a lot for that premises, quite a lot of costs of that. And that's kind of what the CRIS support scheme was about, recognising those fixed costs with our premises, as well, rates, insurance, light and heat, all that. but even just the various local charges as well. So I think it's a good ask, Daragh, and I would be happy to put together a working group on two areas. A, to focus in on the retail and the level playing fields, which includes yourself as a pharmacist, of course. But secondly, then as well, around, we will have a lot more companies in the future now that won't have premises, because remote working is becoming a lot easier now. And we have to crack this out, because a major part of funding a county is through the rates base. I mean, if you look at even just Waterford, in terms of with the rates rebate for last year, when there was a waiver for business, and that meant that Waterford were missing close to 15 million in rates. Now that was paid out by the department, by the government to them and so on, so they're not at a loss for that. But that's the kind of money they need to run a county, and that's only one part of their income. So you're absolutely right. It's how to make sure we have a fund to be spent locally to run a county, but also that businesses have a level playing field, because you are at a disadvantage. Now, we can encourage and work with someone like yourself and many others to have both the blend of online. But you're right, if you're only competing with a really sharp practice business that's online, you're at a disadvantage when it comes to cost. So I don't have all the answers to that. I'm conscious you don't either, but you've touched on one or two options. And I'm very happy to put together a team that we will look at this to see what we can come up with. And it might be around incentives or charges, but there has to be some way to level it off. So I'm happy to take a look at it, because I think it's essential we do that as well. So yes, Daragh, to that.
Thanks, Daragh. Oren Little has a question next, Minister.
Good morning, Minister. Thanks, Mary. I actually have two slightly different questions. I wanted to ask you, the stay and spend scheme, there wasn't a massive uptake on the initiative. Would there be a better way of kind of anything better that could be done? That was one question. And then separately, I wanted to ask you as well about broadening the criteria for the CE schemes. I know that you have to be 9 months unemployed or 12 months, something like that. So there's a lot of people that can't be caught, or given the opportunity to take up a scheme. And also there are people who are due now to come off the scheme, who then will kind of lose out on being able to stay on it, and employers then can't get other people to take it up. So there were just two different things I wanted to ask you about.
Thanks, Oren. A couple of issues there. Yeah, I think the stay and spend scheme, the timing of it didn't lead to a great benefit because of the various lockdowns we happened because of the virus. Again, the virus doesn't help all our plans. It can ruin a lot of them. I think it was designed in a hurry, to be fair. So there are definitely better schemes to be designed and better options out there. And there is a willingness to look at that. I know Minister Catherine Martin has been working with the Department of Finance and has chaired a group along with the Taoiseach as well, focusing in with the whole hospitality sector and to see, is there kind of new schemes? She has a budget to spend on some new incentives, new schemes, so they're looking at that as well. We've had a fair engagement in our department with a lot of the prepaid cards, who believe they can do a lot more. They can do a lot more targeted schemes for us. So in other words, they could come and work with yourselves as a chamber to target a local spend. They've done this in Jersey and it's worked quite well. Where the government would put a couple of €100 onto a card. You can set that card that it can only be spent in Waterford, can only be spent in Dungarvan, anywhere you want really, if you really wanted to go there. So yes, there's opportunity. Since that scheme was announced, a lot of other concepts and ideas have been brought to our attention. People have come in to us with suggestions, so we're working through them all, and then it's decisions of government at some stage to see, well, when's the appropriate time to announce a new scheme or another scheme or something like that. But we are doing a good bit of research on it, so any ideas you have, feed them in, because we're open to that. No, because I mean, very much we're open to kind of some interventions, and certainly we are going to try and see how can we get that local spend. You would have seen we were involved with ourselves as chambers and as Leos with shop local, look local. You won't really hear us saying shop Irish, buy Irish, because we're part of the single European market. So it's not really campaigns we can get involved in about the Irish part, but I think most people know what shop local, look local, what that means. So we are very much open to support local schemes and local solutions. So I do think you're right. I think there was certainly good intention with that scheme. Didn't get the opportunity to work, but even if it did, it might not have been able to reach the level that was hoped. So I think we are looking at that as well. That's one. On the CE schemes, you're right. I think there's a couple of changes needed there. Now, as it turns out, while I'm based in the Department of Enterprise Jobs and Employment, I have a leg in the other department, which I didn't know I had, in the Department of Social Protection. So just before Christmas, because some of the redundancy policy initiatives and legislation and funds are still in social protection, all that end comes under my brief now. So I'm in both departments. So I sat down with Heather Humphreys only there last week around some of the areas that I can work on with her in that department. And we both agreed the CE scheme is one that we could make some changes to. They are, as a department, reviewing it anyway. Do constantly review it over the years anyway, but they're in the middle of probably finalising a review of it. So two things I think are worth looking at, and you touched on them. First of all, is the criteria. At the moment, it had to be the 12 months, 9 months in some cases. That was because the CE scheme is a labour activation scheme. And to really reach those who need it most, it's best tailored to those who are long-term unemployed. But when you go through something like COVID or a financial crash, there's hundreds of thousands unemployed all of a sudden, drop of a hat. So we do need to tailor our schemes and put in new approaches to do that, to be able to reach them as well. And so that's absolutely been looked at. But number two then is the CE scheme. First of all, someone's length of service has been extended to match the various lockdowns. So you're asking me if someone was due to drop off in the month of January, as the time was up, that's been extended. So by the number of months that reflects the lockdown. So that's a useful thing. People wouldn't be asked to leave the CE scheme. But there's quite a few before COVID, and probably in the earlier months of COVID, we're being told by all the people who avail of CE schemes, run them, manage them, that they can't get participants, and they couldn't get participants. So we recognise there's a mismatch there. They provide a great service. They provide a great opportunity for businesses to, certainly some services in the social enterprise area, to avail of talent. So we recognise that, and we recognise the benefits of that as well. Social protection were particularly only focused on activation, and that doesn't solve the needs of business or a community group or a town or a village who want to avail of a CE scheme to enhance the area. So we need to probably break the scheme in half and have one half that's focused on providing that local community service, that local support to business, as well as on the other side, which is purely activation. There's two kind of schemes needed there. And that's what the review is looking at. How best do you achieve that? Possibly, to be honest with you, the success might be that the CE scheme that responds to a local demand as opposed to activation probably doesn't need to be in the social protection department, because they are about activation and should be, in my view. So maybe somebody else can own it or certainly fund it. So that's what's been looked at. But I would say we come across numerous people who are of a certain age, the mortgage is paid, the family are raised, college is paid for. They don't feel the need to have a full-time job working mad hours for big money. They'd be quite content to work on a community CE scheme or community scheme, and that's a major asset to a locality. So that's something we are going to try to make that easier, because telling that person who might be 64 or 63, you're 3 years are up on a CE scheme, you can get an extension of 1 year and then back out to the workforce, even though they don't want to. So there's no point in trying to activate somebody who feels they've worked long enough and want to do some other kind of a benefit. So that's something we need to recognise. And I think because of the high unemployment levels now, I think that will facilitate a change to the schemes. So I think, Oren, we will see those kind of changes and tweaks. It's the review is nearly finished anyway, so I'll be in there with Minister Heather Humphreys, who's leading it.
Thanks a million, Minister. And Oren, just to say, I am becoming conscious of time, and we do have a few more questions that people have submitted, do want to get through. Yvonne has asked me to ask these questions on her behalf. So she's with Bowman Jewellers. She said it is difficult to get staff part-time at the moment because there's more of an incentive to be on PUP. So that's just kind of something I think probably a lot of people employing part-time staff. And Yvonne just has a second segment to her question also. VAT reduced to 21% for 6 months, due to end in March. Potentially we could lose between now and March. Any plans to extend this? And she said the increase from 21% to 23% was to be temporary. Can it not now be reduced? So there's kind of two separate questions there. If we'll go through those, Minister.
Okay, thanks, Mary. I suppose to work backwards, the move to 23%, I think was back in, was it 2013 or 14? I think at the time it was during a different crisis we had. Michael Lewin made that decision as well. I'm not sure how temporary it was meant to be at the time. It wasn't certainly for a year or two, but I think the feeling was it wouldn't be permanent. It's been there a long number of years now. The decision was taken in the budget just for the 6 months. Before the budget, for the 6 months, which does end in March. It's been raised with me probably every week at the retail forum. I have flagged the Department of Finance. We have made the case. We've asked. it's a decision that the Department of Finance have to make, and it has not been made yet. So as it stands, it still ends in March. Usually the VAT decisions are kind of generally only made at a budget time. I'm conscious this one wasn't. So Pascal Donoghue and Michael McGrath will have to make a decision on this in the very near future. There is a lot of demand that it be kept, and we're feeding that into the Department of Finance. It will be a cabinet decision, but what I've asked them as of late of last week was that we do bring a very clear answer to this, yes or no. It can't drag on into February, March, because it will affect people's plans as well. So I suspect we get an updated commitment one way or the other on this in early February. The second one around part-time workers, and yeah, there is a lot of feedback to say that people are getting hard to source staff in certain sectors because of the PUP payment, the pandemic unemployment payment. It is a significant level of payment of support to people, and in some cases the feedback would say that it's deterring people taking up a job. Again, if it's an employer taking back a worker, there is a system of feeding into the department. If you believe your employees won't come back because of PUP, we can deal with that. They're discouraged not to do that. The payment levels were adjusted to try to reflect people's wages. In the very early stages, I accept PUP did, in some cases, people were taking home more money than they were before PUP when they were employed. So that was changed again to reflect their previous earnings. Obviously, they said to us that the rate at 350 was set quite high. It was a very quick intervention, which we didn't think would be needed for 9 months, and we didn't think it would go to the level that's on it, which is over 500,000 at the moment. So it was announced quite quickly, but it was also done for recognising that most people who are unemployed might qualify for the 203 on the job seekers allowance, but the majority are probably in a situation where there's a couple and there might be some children, and it very often ends up quite close to 350 anyway. And that's why it was done, to also ease the administration, that we could react quite quickly and keep people in pocket and in money, and also because that would support the economy as well. So that's why the initial intervention was at 350 and set quite high. It's been hard to come away from that because of all the various lockdowns and restrictions. It is in place to the end of March, but we do recognise, and we have tried to manage it, that it's not a deterrent to go back to work. But it's probably fair to say it is in some cases, but not the majority. But from a part-time point of view, I'm conscious that the wage subsidy isn't really of any assistance to anybody below 150 euro as an employer. Maybe that's what we can look at, some sort of an incentive there, that you can make it worth someone's while to come off PUP and go back to work. I think what's probably wrong, or probably not helping a family choice to leave a PUP payment to go back to work when your job is not guaranteed. It's probably a difficult choice for a family member to say, do they risk going back to work and coming off PUP? That's why we've made it easy to go back on it if you lost your job again. So I think when we finally come out of these restrictions and to get some guarantee around the future with vaccines, and people know that we're finished with lockdowns, I think then it will be easier to attract staff back or new people to take up the jobs as well. So we have to get there as quickly as we possibly can.
Thanks very much, Minister, and thanks, Yvonne, for the question. We'll just ask a couple more quick questions to wrap, because we are nearly up on the hour, but Linda Hogan has a question for you, Minister. Linda. I'm not sure, can we hear Linda here? I can ask the question for Linda.
Good afternoon, Minister.
Hi, Linda.
Yeah, I suppose really I'm from the retail sector, and we have a shop in the centre of town. And like a lot of retailers, I suppose some of the problems that we are finding is that trying to, which is, you probably know, but it's just trying to get products. It's very difficult. Yeah. A lot of the companies already are putting up their stock, and that's really from extra costs that they have from COVID, let alone Brexit. So we're finding that our costs and our products are already going up, and like going forward now into 2021, I can see that's going to be quite an issue. And on top of that, we really don't know what the costs of importing goods into Ireland are going to cost us. Like, we've done what we've been asked. We have our EOR and I number. We have registered with a customs agent in Waterford and that, but until we actually go and import, make our first order this year with a UK company, we don't know what the costs are going to be. So I suppose I'm just really highlighting the difficulties going forward next year for the retailers and for the small retailers. And also, I suppose what Yvonne from one of the questions earlier had emphasised was that it's very important that the 21% VAT rate is held after March. I mean, I think it should even be reduced a little bit further, but it definitely should be held. So really, I suppose I'm just trying to highlight the difficulties for the small retailers in town centres. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. I'll probably deal with the Brexit end of it. I suppose we're all in the same boat. We're still trying to work out the impact of that full deal. While there was a reasonable deal, which probably helps certainly certain elements of the retail sector and trade, the full consequences of the components of every product is not fully known yet, because the tariffs, apart from the cost of customs and all the red tape and all the rules there, we know there's a certain cost there, but then the other end is the additional tariffs on some of the products. And certainly if you're bringing products through the UK, if they're not a UK origin originally, if they came from someplace else into the UK and onto ourselves here, that gets very complicated in working out the price of that. And every product is going to have to go through this process in the months ahead. So we won't have full realization of all these costs probably the next 3 months. And it'll become clear that certain products might not be viable anymore, or we might have to switch or find a different supplier or a different source. So that's something we will work with these various sectors on. And there was already a fund announced in the agricultural area for products there and the food business, but we can do that for each sector too when it becomes clear where the problem areas are. And that is complicated. Even our own department, we have geniuses trying to work out some of these tariffs and the rules. But we are working through the overall plan. I think I've read at this stage 900 pages of it, about 1200 pages of it, just to get me head fully into it. But there's a lot of little details there we have to tease through. So we'll work with you on that, Linda, when the picture becomes clearer. Number one. Number two, if you're involved in importing, it's important that you have your customs agent. Either you have someone that you employ directly or a group you employ directly, but there's a grant available from that from Enterprise Ireland. It's only viable probably to have somebody fully employed if you're doing about 300 transactions a year, either importing or exporting. Below that, it's probably better to work with a customs agent and pay when you need it. But there is a grant towards having a person if it's over that as well, or if you're a very large business. But I think what we need to do here is probably, as a retail sector, to come together on certain products. There's been no products identified to me that are short supply at this moment in time. It's probably only when we work out the costs that you might say, as someone trading in Dungarvan, it's just not worth your while stocking that product. And then we have to see, can we get it someplace else? Can we support you in that? Can it be sourced locally through import substitution, or can you get it elsewhere in the European market? So that's one end of it. We do think the shipping costs and the freight costs will come down again quite quickly. I mean, we all know that importing that from China, the cost of freight nearly quadrupled over the last couple of months. We do fully expect that to drop significantly again quite quickly, as this whole area sorts about. It's a lot of it's coupled simply to do with containers all in one end of the continent versus the other. So some of the costs will come back down, others won't, and there are some items that won't be viable. So we will have to watch that space. I think by April we'll have a fair picture of this, but it'll take the next 2 or 3 months to really see where this is all going in terms of Brexit. The deal is quite significant in most areas, but there's hidden problems in there too that we have to try to figure out.
Thanks a million, Linda. We are pretty much out of time, but we're just going to cross back over, Minister, to Jenny Beresford. Jenny has a last question. I think we got round to, no bother, I think we got round to everyone's questions. So Jenny is going to ask the last one here.
Thank you very much. And actually, I suppose this is more of an ask rather than a question, please, Minister. You mentioned the spend and save scheme, which I've also heard is helicopter money in other forums. And I'd just like to ask that the department and the government might consider that chamber vouchers could be an ideal way for something like this, because most counties would have chambers and chamber vouchers. And it's a far more encompassing scheme than any of the other card schemes that are out there. We'd have retailers that don't have the infrastructure, we'll say, but also we'll say, any of our, call them competitor cards, they represent far more companies than we'll say locally we do. So something like utilising chambers to deliver the spend would make it really fair for each county, and it would encompass far more smaller local businesses that would really need it. So thank you very much.
Jenny, absolutely right. And look, that's something that I'm very keen on, is around the vouchers. I was involved in doing one myself years ago with our own chamber here in Navan. But they can work very well. And when I mentioned the card companies, I didn't mean any particular branded cards. I meant some of the prepaid card companies that would come in with you as a chamber and design your voucher scheme with a card and operate it very locally as well. So there's loads of ways of doing this as well, and we are looking at it. I suppose what I'd probably important to say, I did mention earlier on that there was a 3.5 billion recovery fund set aside. That's apart from the budget for the year ahead, which is close to 90 billion, this 3 billion plus is not allocated yet. It's available to fund schemes or support that we think are worthwhile or can make an impact in a certain sector or a certain area, geographical balance. So that's something we can look for and once we got an evidence-based suggestion. How to pull together all our plans, we'll say, coming out of COVID, we have a national economic recovery plan that we had hoped to publish during January. This stage probably will be February/March, depends when it's fully complete. And that's kind of setting us on a footing for the next 2-3 years into a 5-year kind of as a national recovery coming out of COVID. There'll be a lot of schemes in that, a lot of opportunity to feed in new schemes, but also there'll be money behind it. And it goes back to the question probably Regina asked earlier on about the link to education and funding of education. That is a big part of that recovery plan as well. So that is the national recovery plan. So you'll have your yearly budgets, you'll have your yearly plans, all that is a very supports, but that's something we'll all buy into. And I'm launching something tomorrow that was touched on. Somebody earlier on asked about SME support. I think it was Pat, but his question was mainly retail. But in general, the future of SMEs, which will be very important to yourselves. We had a task force work for about 8 weeks over September and October on the future of SMEs. It was an SME task force. They did a lot of good work fed into our department. So it's their plan that myself and Robert Fry will announce tomorrow. And in that is a lot of actions, a lot of interventions that we believe will help the SME sector to grow and expand and flourish and make it easier to start up new as well, because a big part of this is new startups. So watch out for that. I think it's tomorrow. I better not give any secrets away of it tonight, but it's not so much that it's my plan or Robert's plan or Leo's or Michael Martin's plan. It is a plan that came from the sector. Entrepreneurs right throughout the country came together in a working group, put a lot of work into this. So they have a lot of suggestions, interventions in that we'll feed into an action plan, which I think we can make progress on. I was involved in the action plan for jobs back with Richard Bruton that worked for 4 or 5 years, which I think was really an effective way of doing business across all government departments, responding to the needs of business with various actions every month, every year. And we tracked all that. It's something you do in business every day of the week anyway. It's, making sure that actions are implemented and followed through. And so that's why I think the action plan for SMEs is important that we have that as well. So it'll be launched tomorrow, all going well, and we'll work to that too. So I again, as a chamber, just to say to David and to Jenny and all the team, happy to engage with them. That I hope is worthwhile. I'm sorry some of the questions went on a bit too long, but I'm happy to have a regular intervention with yourselves because it's vital feedback for us too to hear firsthand your concerns. So if you want to read some of the documents, I'll send them on to you. If there's any more questions, Jenny or Mary that come in that I've missed, send them on to me and I'll send you back answers as well. So thanks, Mary, for chairing, and thanks, Jenny and David, for organising.
Thanks a million, Minister, and just on behalf of Jenny and David, thank you very much. Your answers to the questions were so comprehensive, and I really think much appreciated by everybody here today. Also on behalf of the Chamber, I want to thank Senator John Cummins for being here today as well, and for helping out on so many lobbying activities as well. But I think it was a really great session. I think everybody will agree, and hopefully, we got around to as many people as we could in a short space of time. But again, Minister English, thank you so much for giving so much of your time and for listening to people as well. Okay. I think we're ready to wrap, Jenny.
And Mary, thank you, and thanks everybody for the time. I'm conscious it's a busy time for business too, trying to manage COVID and Brexit, so appreciate that. No doubt, John Cummins and Jenny have kept a list of all the commitments there and questions, so the pressure will be on me to respond, but happy to do that. I look forward to engaging you more in the future as well. So thanks very much.
Okay.
Thanks very much, everybody. I'm not going to add anything to it. To be fair, Mary has just thanked the people I was going to mention. Obviously, John Cummins has been very supportive of the local chamber. Obviously, Damien, thank you very much for a busy diary. I really appreciate it. Jenny for obviously putting in the hard work as usual, organising these events for us, and Mary from WLR for facilitating. Look, thank you very much. Hopefully we get some green shoots during this year for all of us. As the vaccination keeps going and we get out there, hopefully we'll all see some improvement. Look, thanks again for your time, everybody, and thank you, Minister.
Thanks, David. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.